Today, we're taking a closer look at the iRobot Roomba 505 Combo Robot Vacuum and Mop and comparing it to the 130 plus different robot vacuums we've reviewed on the channel. For anyone here trying to figure out the difference between the 405 and the 505, well, here it is. The 505 is essentially the same as the 405, but it adds obstacle avoidance and mop pad extension and hot air drying for the mop pad. That's the entire list, so use that info however you need. Thank you to iRobot for sending us the sample, but just to be clear, this video is not sponsored. You'll get our honest and unfiltered take, and we'll let the data speak for itself. If you want to dive deeper, there's a link in the description. Now let's get into the unboxing. Inside the box, you'll find the robot vacuum, side brush, auto wash dock with power cord, an extra set of mop pads, and a spare auto empty bag, and the usual product literature. Setup is quick and straightforward. Snap in the side brush, put on the magnetic mop pads, plug in the dock, fill the clean water tank, and let the unit charge. Once that's done, connect it to the iRobot Home app. Available on both iOS and Android devices, and you're good to go. Now, a quick heads up for those familiar with iRobot's older models like the 600, I, or J series devices, there's a brand new app. The original app is now called the Home App Classic. Your account info carries over and you'll still see all of your legacy devices, but here's the catch. You'll need the Classic app to control those older models, while the new app is required for the latest generation. It's an awkward split. And look, I'm not an app developer, but I've got to be honest, the new app isn't great. It doesn't resolve the issues from the old version, and in some ways, it's even more confusing with how they have maps organized. Personally, I find it frustrating to use, and for me, that's a major drawback. If you rely heavily on the app to manage your robot, this could be a deal breaker. On the flip side, if you typically set a schedule and rarely open the app again, you might not be too bothered by it. Right out of the box, the Roomba 505 experience felt completely different from our time with the 405 in a very good way. The 405 required an oddly unintuitive firmware update that took nearly an hour to finish, but the 505 skipped that entire headache, which was a huge relief. If you're coming from an older Roomba, you will immediately appreciate the move to LiDAR navigation. The 505 maps and navigates much faster and feels more in line with the rest of the industry. Anyone who's used iRobot's older non-LiDAR models will remember how painfully slow those units could be. So this is a major improvement. And on the subject of upgrades, the 505 keeps the dual spinning mop pads on the 405. It still feels wild that it took this long for iRobot to adapt and adopt a design that the competitors have had for years, but better late than never. When it comes to cleaning performance, the Roomba 505 holds its own. In our high-traffic, pet-filled home, it handled hair crumbs and fine dust without any trouble. The mop left the floors looking noticeably fresher and was a clear improvement over the 100 series Roombas, which mostly just dragged a damp pad around. Carpet cleaning is another strong point with good suction and consistent coverage throughout our tests. We did run into some hair tangles on the brush roller, which is expected since it lacks a conical roller or an active detangling system. Many robot vacuums in the mid-range and above now include conical or split rollers to reduce tangles, and this is something iRobot should seriously consider adding. To be fair, that type of hardware would likely increase the cost, but with the 505 being positioned in that upper mid-range category, it feels like a feature that would make sense here, and honestly, it should be here. When it comes to raw power, it's refreshing to see iRobot publish suction specs. The Roomba 505 delivers 7,000 pascals of suction, below our overall average, but that average includes flagship models pushing over 20,000 pascals. For a mid-range robot vacuum, 7,000 pascals is actually quite respectable. On the noise front, the 505 clocks in at 82 decibels, about 9 decibels louder than the category average. Interestingly, both the 505 and the earlier 105 share the same rated suction power, but the 505 is noticeably louder. The good news, you can just adjust suction settings, so you don't have to run it on max if you prefer a quieter clean. In our suction test, the 505 pulled 343 FPM, that's feet per minute on carpet, which is below the category average of 420 FPM, but in line with recent iRobot models. Higher would be better, but this still represents a real improvement over older units. Airflow peaked at 0.22 kPa during our in-use tests, again about half the average, but consistent with previous iRobot models like the Combo J10 Plus Max. So how does that translate to real-world performance? Surprisingly well. The 505 scored a 95 out of 100 in our practical cleaning tests, beating the overall average of 88. So while it may not blow away the competition on paper or even outperform the entry-level 105 in some metrics, it punches above its weight in everyday use. On the mopping side, iRobot has made some meaningful strides. The redesigned system uses dual spinning mop pads that can lift over carpet and return to the dock for self-washing and drying. The 505 adds mop extension, which helps clean further into corners and along edges, and hot air drying. It's not the most advanced system out there. There's no hot water washing, automatic solution dispensing, or auto mop removal, but it's still a major step forward for iRobot and the Roomba lineup. That said, the 505 doesn't have an onboard water tank, so it makes frequent trips back to the base station to re-wet and clean its mop pads. And in keeping with the theme of being a bit late to the game, the industry is already shifting towards more advanced roller and track style mopping system. Still, there's reason to be optimistic. iRobot launched the Roomba Combo Max 705, which has a roller mop. One standout feature of the 505, however, is its self-emptying system built into the auto wash station. It's compact, thoughtfully designed, and adds a real layer of convenience. Depending on your usage, you could go weeks, possibly even months, without needing to replace the vacuum bag. The iRobot Home app, available on both iOS and Android devices, offers essential controls for the Roomba 505, including customizable cleaning settings, smart mapping, and zone-specific targeting. It supports multi-floor mapping, no-go zones, and voice commands via Amazon and Google. While the expected features are all there, the user experience leaves much to be desired. As mentioned earlier, the interface is clunky and unintuitive. Navigating the app feels more frustrating than it should, and for me personally, it's a deal breaker. A cleaner, more streamlined UI could greatly improve the experience, but as it stands, the app remains a major weak point. The Roomba 505 currently holds a 4.1 out of 5-star rating, with users generally praising its vacuuming and mopping capabilities, particularly on hard floors and its convenience for busy lifestyles. Users appreciate its lighter navigation, which allows for efficient mapping and obstacle avoidance, as well as features like the auto wash dock for self-cleaning and pad refreshing. However, some users have reported issues with the app, inconsistent mopping performance, and occasional difficulty with small objects or deep cleaning on carpets. Redditors tend to follow the same suit, praising the 505 for strong vacuuming and hard floor cleaning, saying its lighter navigation is fast and accurate and that it handles pet hair and everyday messes well. Others enjoyed the convenience of the vacuum mop combo with self-emptying, mop pad drying, and generally good obstacle avoidance. On the downside, some report issues with mop pads detaching mid-cleaning and mopping sometimes stopping after vacuuming, or the robot failing to return to its dock. Others note hair tangles on the brush or loose brush elements that negatively affect edge and corner cleaning. As with every model we test, there's always room for improvement, and the Roomba 505 is no exception. The biggest drawback for me is the app. It's buggy, slow, and frustrating to navigate, which really undermines the overall experience. The interface feels unintuitive and clunky, and addressing these issues would go a long way in making the 505 a more polished and user-friendly product. Other than that, in this segment of the market, there's fierce competition, and nothing on the 505 stands out in a good way. It's missing other features like hot water washing, side brush extension, and a conical-shaped roller brush for better hair detangling. What's even more eye-opening, and could be the final nail in the coffin for iRobot, is you can usually find those models at the same price or even lower than the 505. Overall, the Roomba 505 combo is a solid upper mid-range option that delivers reliable vacuuming, effective mopping, and convenient self-emptying with its auto wash dock. Its lighter navigation and dual spinning mop pads are definite improvements over older models, making it faster, smarter, and more efficient in everyday cleaning. That said, the 505 doesn't particularly stand out in a competitive market. The app remains clunky and unintuitive, hair tangles are still an issue, and it lacks advanced features like hot water washing, side brush extension, or conical rollers for better hair management. For buyers looking for a straightforward, dependable robot vacuum and mop, the 505 gets the job done, but with so many similarly priced alternatives offering more features, it's hard to call it a must-have.